As the banking world deals with the fallout from the collapse of two banks in the U.S., many have been asking if the same thing could happen here in Canada and whether our money is safe. Our financial commentator, Patty Levitt-Reid, joins us to help us better understand the crisis and the safeguards that are key to protecting Canadian banks. Good morning, Patty.
Hi, Matt. Good morning.
So Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland has issued a statement assuring Canadians that our financial institutions are secure after meeting with the Bank of Canada and Canada's banking regulator, the OSFI. So what's being done to keep a close watch on Canadian banks following the SVB collapse?
Well, you can be sure, Matt, the regulators are all over this. And what I can tell you is our big banks are very diversified. We don't have the same exposure to the technology sector that we're seeing in the U.S. Our loan to deposit ratio is higher than the U.S. Could we see guidelines change? Maybe. This is going to be messy with what's going on with the Silicon Valley Bank, no question about it. I'm watching the futures this morning, Matt, for example. They're off over 500 points, and this is because Credit Suisse, the Swiss bank that is in the U.S. and globally, will not be getting any more money from Saudi National to help prop it up, so to speak. And so that stock in pre-market was down about 24%. The trading's halted, but everyone is watching things very closely. But our banks are well capitalized. We've got money in the bank. Doesn't mean the banks may have to up how much money they have. That could happen. But for now, I'm invested in the banks, and I have money in the banks, and I'm staying with the banks.
And I guess that's the thing, Patty, too, is we talk about the stability offered to the banks here in Canada as opposed to the U.S. So you touched on a couple of the reasons, but if you can go into interest rates a little bit more, too, that quick rise that we saw in Canada south of the border,
Sure.
And how that impacted things.
Well, if you're talking about Silicon Valley Bank, this is a company or a bank that really invested in startups, so to speak, in the technology sector. In 2021, they took in a ton of cash. It was a low interest rate environment. So they were lending money out, but what did they do with the deposit money? They went for a slightly bigger yield, and they went with 10-year U.S. Treasuries, betting, and came up flat-footed, quite frankly, that the Fed wasn't going to continue to raise interest rates, which of course they did. Today, we're also hearing now about a class action lawsuit by those who have been impacted against the CEO of Silicon Valley Bank and the chief financial officer, saying, you didn't disclose to us the risk that we would be under if rates went higher. And they suggest that it was a fairly significant risk. As an individual, a lesson I'm taking away is diversification. I just don't quite get how this was overlooked, but it certainly seems to be. And the regulators don't seem to have been on top of it to say, hey, like what's going on? We got to correct this, until it was too late. And the reason that the Fed stepped in to backstop the depositors beyond what they're covered for by insurance has a lot to do with panic. If you get a run on a bank, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy elsewhere as well.
So quickly here too, Patty, your biggest lesson is diversification, and we talk about that as well. Is that the biggest takeaway in learning from this collapse?
Sure. And a lot of people are asking me, what am I exactly covered for? I would go on Canada Deposit Insurance Corporation's website to get a better idea. Believe it or not, everyone thinks it's $100,000, but it can be more than that depending on how many accounts you have and how they are set up. It can be a little complicated, but it's worth the effort.
Certainly is. Financial commentator Patty Levitt-Reid, always appreciate you having it on. Thanks, Patty.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.